I just wanted to welcome all of the participants who are attending our meeting, including some people who may be here for the first time. Brookline Can's Livable Community Advocacy Committee is a volunteer organization that advocates for issues that are of special concern to seniors. And we try to stay aware of what's happening in the town. And we have many interesting guests at our meetings. And today we are absolutely thrilled to have Select Board member Bernard Greene at our meeting. He's one of the 5 members of our Select Board. And he is also a former chair of the Select Board. And to give you some additional background, Bernard Greene was first elected to the Select Board in 2015 and is currently the longest serving current member of the Select Board. He has lived in Brookline since 2004 and was first elected to town meeting in 2006. He is now a retired attorney, which I assured him saying you're retired is considered a very good thing with our group. And he was formerly general counsel for the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, a state agency that finances drinking water and wastewater projects throughout the Commonwealth. So I welcome Select Board member Greene. And I'd like to start off with a basic question. First, do you want to just say hi to us so you appear on our screen?
Hello, and I'm glad to be here. Should be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, no, we're really happy to be able to do this in such an informal setting. First question, what led you to become involved in Brookline's government in the first place? And then why did you decide to run for the Select Board?
I'm not sure I can answer that second question, but yeah, I guess I'd like to say that I've always been interested in public service. My legal practice was really public service oriented. I was bond counsel for many years in Cleveland, Ohio, and I worked for the Attorney General in Nashville as well as here in Massachusetts before working for the State Treasurer's Office. So that type of public service has always been in my blood. In Cleveland, I was on the school board, which is different from a school committee in that the school boards in many states are actually municipalities. When I came to Brookline, I got on town meeting because someone that many of you may remember who passed away a few years ago, Emily Novick, just wonderful person who's a lawyer. I'd ride home on the T with her many times. And one day she said, "Why don't you run for town meeting?" And then she told me what town meeting was. And because she asked, right, I decided to run. And that's an important thing to remember. Many times people will do things like run for town meeting because someone asked them. If you don't ask, they won't do it. But anyway, that's how I got on town meeting. And I was there for a number of years before I was appointed to the advisory committee. And why did I run for Select Board? Again, because I was asked. And I thought that, well, maybe I can make a contribution to this town. I don't know if I was, controlled by my ego or something, but I thought that at that time in 2015, there are a number of issues that I could, make a contribution to. And other people thought that and asked me, so I decided to go forward and do it. It's been quite an experience being on the Select Board, both good and bad. I mean, it started out at almost from the very beginning as a challenge. We have a lot of, I like to always say, we have a lot of people in Brookline who are very, very smart. They know a lot of answers and they think they know it all. So it's very difficult to be a town leader in a community like that. But at the same time, it's a good challenge because we have a lot of resources that can be used to address the problems that we have in town. So I think that's an answer to your question, Susan.
Second question I wanted to ask, we're a senior organization, so we are especially concerned about what the town is doing for us, and is there more that the town can do? So my question is, what are the current benefits for seniors that the town offers? And in your opinion, what more should the town be doing to help seniors, particularly now that we have all experienced COVID, and that has had a huge impact on the senior population in terms of both the actual contracting of COVID and the extreme measures that seniors have had to do to protect themselves from COVID. And of course, the growing, the mental stresses of both coming down with COVID and having friends and people we know dying of COVID. So whatever, whatever help that the town is giving, I think there may be a need for additional help. So start off by telling us, what is the town currently providing in the way of benefits to the senior population, which is close to 20% right now of Brookline's entire population? And what more do you think the town could and should be doing?
Okay, that's a complex question. So let me try to answer it. First of all politicians, and I call myself a politician in the good sense, not the bad sense, realize that they should be responsive to those people who vote and therefore are really interested in what they do and what they can do for you. And frankly, in Brookline, just as in any other community, the senior population is the most responsible population in terms of getting out and voting. And because they vote, people pay attention to what they say and what they say they need. So I think that Brookline, like any community, is very responsive to the senior population. Now, can we do more? Yes, we can. And here are some of the issues that I think can impede our ability or our willingness to provide the type of support that seniors want and need. It's important that seniors, just like any other community, let their voices be heard. Many times we propose things in Brookline, everything from overrides to parking restrictions, or other things that don't look at the proposal through the eyes of seniors, as well as other people, but seniors in particular. And therefore, we may make proposals that take away, for example, parking spots for handicapped seniors or their caregivers, or we may propose an override without thinking about what is the impact of that going to be on seniors who aren't as wealthy or financially capable as some other people. It's not that we don't do these things. It's just that we have to think about what the impact on seniors will be. And one way that you and we can ensure that the town does think about those impacts is by letting your voice be heard. I'm a big advocate for people to reach out and speak to town leaders through emails, or if it's serious enough, to actually come to a select board meeting and speak in public comment. So I think that we do a lot for seniors. We need to do more, and that's really going to be a function of how loud and insistent people are to ensure that their concerns are heard and hopefully addressed. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go right ahead.
I was going to.
No.
I was going to talk about COVID. There are a lot of things that the COVID pandemic has revealed as threats to people, particularly seniors. You know, let's see, it sort of revealed the fact that we really need a much more robust human services infrastructure in this town. You know, we have a health department that's actually called the Health and Human Services Department. Of course, it depends on, you know, where you're reading that. The town is not consistent in terms of how it labels a health department, but it is a Health and Human Services Department. And that department is basically not sufficiently staffed to handle all the issues that, or all the problems that we have, both for seniors and other segments of the population. So one of the things that we are pushing, and you know, to some extent that we can use, you know, some of the federal government money that's coming down, as well as state programs, is to provide resources like social workers at the senior center, but also social workers and other social service resources at the health department, so that we have the ability to deal with the types of issues that COVID has revealed are problems, such as mental health, you know, which is, you know, we always talk about in terms of the mental health impact of COVID on youth, and that is a serious problem. It's also a serious problem for seniors, who many times are more isolated in their homes during the shutdown than other people. And, you know, isolation is not something that everyone deals with easily. And so, you know, mental health services, you know, in terms of everything from, you know, therapy type stuff, which we usually think of, but also in terms of just resources to visit people or call them even, and make sure that they're able to continually be engaged in community activities, and, you know, don't feel isolated and alone. So, you know, that we can provide those resources if we, among other things.
Building on what you said, because I also agree that senior input is important when the town is having committees and commissions working on issues. And I was wondering, shouldn't the select board make more of an effort to reach out to senior organizations to get appointees, for example, on the Commission on Diversity, or on any of the medical advisory commissions? It would seem to me that you would definitely want to have at least one representative of a senior organization who can provide that perspective. And it's not enough simply to have someone who is of senior age if they're not someone who really is knowledgeable about the needs of the senior community, as people who work with senior organizations like the Council on Aging and Brookline Can might be able to provide. So that's one suggestion for making certain that these concerns are incorporated within decision-making or advisory types of bodies that advise the select board on key issues. And the other thing, of course, is the budget for the Council on Aging. And that's the organization that is the fulcrum of all of the efforts to help seniors. And they do so not only through the actual physical existence of the senior center, but all of these different services that seniors can take advantage of, such as transportation to doctors and social workers who are knowledgeable about the concerns of seniors. And so these are and can deal with emergency situations that may crop up where there are no other people, such as family members living in Brookline, who can help seniors. So these are the kinds of things that maybe the select board isn't aware of, but the Senior Center is an organization that really has a huge impact on seniors' lives. But unfortunately, because of its location, it's harder for seniors to physically access the Senior Center if they don't live within walking distance. There's basically very little parking in that area. And so one concern that seniors have is the need for a satellite senior center that would be more accessible for people who live in South Brookline. And that's something that I hope that the select board will keep in mind.
Okay. Let me just answer a few questions
Sure.
before you give me too many that I can't remember. And I see Janet Gelbart has a hand up, but let me just mention a couple things that are key. First of all, going back to the previous question, be aware that we have a new Health and Human Services Director, and the recommendation to the select board labeled that position as Director of Health and Human Services. Now, that's important because many times we just call it the Public Health Department, and our website calls it the Public Health Department or any number of other things. But, hopefully we're now focusing on it as both health and human services. And I urge people to, urge the Council on Aging to reach out and talk to the new director, Sigali Reese, who comes from Norwood, to explain to her, your concerns and your needs, so that as she is pulling together the department and reorganizing it to fit her views of this, or conception of the health department, she'll include what your concerns are also. We do recognize that many of our boards and commissions need a wider diversity of people than we usually get. That's difficult. We do send out notices and solicit people to join or apply for positions. But frankly, those notices go out to a very limited universe of people, and that is people who are involved in politics and civic affairs in Brookline. So, we urge people to, when they hear of an example here, an opening on a commission or a board, that they think of who they know who may not be within the sort of in crowd, who they can encourage to apply. Let's see, you mentioned senior center access. Yes, the select board is very much thinking about expanding the resources available to the senior center and the facilities available. And matter of fact, I'm pushing the town administrators to put together a charge for a committee to address the use of the Newberry site. And it's been proposed for any number of things, from swimming pool to public housing. But the thing that no matter what is up there should be included is a satellite center for senior centers of some sort. And I don't know what that would look like, but that is it's an opportunity we can't lose, because the need for satellite center near South Brookline, I mean, that's not in South Brookline, but it's near South Brookline, is very important. And there may be other locations that we can look at. Access to the senior center. I know that the senior van, it is an important way that people can get to the senior center and other places, and that there are issues there that need to be addressed. I made some inquiries regarding how the town can seek grant funding under the new infrastructure bill, federal infrastructure bill, that has a lot of money through the transportation department and through the transit or Federal Transit Administration for both electrical vehicles, including buses, as well as electrical vehicle infrastructure. So, that's a little down the road, but that's something I think we should push, and, be an important way to address that problem. I think those are the things you asked.
Right. No, so because you chaired the Select Board's Policing Reform Committee, I want to ask you specifically what programs that it recommended have been implemented, and what other recommendations can we expect to be implemented in the future? Because we've all been reading articles in the Globe that our police department is not in great shape and that morale has really been declining in recent years.
Yeah. Let me just say that the morale problem is a very complex problem. It has to do with the sort of anti-police rhetoric that we hear in some quarters of town, but also has to do with issues of salary, issues of educational opportunities. I mean, it's complex, and we're trying to address it. My policing reforms committee had a number of recommendations, and hopefully with the new police commissioner, who is expected to be appointed soon, many of those can be implemented. But it really depends on what the town, what the police chief, what the police department hears from the community as either support or hatred. So, if you have ideas on these issues, please let us know, okay? Don't let it be said that the only people who talk at the select board meeting or send emails to the select board are people who think the police department should be disbanded. Don't let that be what people believe. So, get your emails. We do read them, and they do have an impact. Now, in terms of what the Policing Reform Committee accomplished, three things off the top of my head. We established a Police Commissioners Advisory Committee, which is designed to assist the Select Board in carrying out some of its functions as police commissioners, which are mainly to oversee the police department in terms of the policies and procedures, which is a very, very difficult job. And the Select Board has fallen behind in many respects. So the Police Commissioner Advisory Committee is providing additional resources to the Select Board to handle many of the issues that we as so-called police commissioners are responsible for, but also dealing with issues of complaints as well as other things that are important part of the policing function here in town. We've set up an app that people can use for complaints or commendations of police interactions that people have. And there haven't been very many complaints or commendations, but they are still very, very useful. Many of the complaints have to do with things like just rudeness, and those are important to hear about because they're things that we can address. If someone goes into the police station and the guy at the desk is not as responsive or as rude even, that doesn't mean anything other than maybe he had a bad day. But that is something that the police chief or others can say, hey, look, you need to really make sure that when someone comes in and needs help, that you have a smile on your face and you are responsive to their concerns. And we wouldn't know to be able to do that, which people think is very important when they have those interactions, without people sending in complaints through this app. So it's a very important app. We also set up a homelessness task force where we deal with the fact that we have about 12 homeless people in this town, but everyone is concerned about both their needs as well as the problems that may result from homelessness encampments, etc. So that is another thing where we're bringing together police resources, because they're critically important in this area, along with other resources to address problems that are going to become more significant and open with the disbandment of the Mannalia Cass and Massachusetts Avenue encampment. I mean, the people who are there are moving already into the Muddy River area, not on the Brookline side, but across the pond in Boston. And that's going to create a lot of problems that we're going to have to deal with. And this homelessness task force will be able to assist in that. In terms of proposed things in the future, we agreed with the task force on policing reimagination that the town needs a lot more social service or human service resources. And we have a number of proposals both to increase the number of social workers, both in the police department. We have one social worker who does critically important work to increase the number in the police department, but also social workers who can assist on various things related to policing in the health department. We also have on the table a proposal for Brookline to engage with the state, who has a huge amount of money for behavioral health programs that will provide opportunities for us to, for example, if someone's in a mental health or substance use crisis, where the police have to come in and deal with the situation, at least as the first responder to that situation, the option that they have is not to put them in the jail cell, which is not going to do any good, but the option would be to have resources that can provide mental health or other type services at the scene, as well as get them into the type of facility, whether it's a hospital or a mental health facility, that they need, that will enable them to have long-term, good results. The state has a lot of money and a lot of resources, for these programs, and we're just pushing Brookline to take advantage of that.
I want to go back to budget. I believe that seniors in this town are fairly vocal in their advocacy, but by the time the budget is published, goes to advisory committee and the select board, it's baked. And I was wondering if the select board has any mechanism for helping the town administrator set priorities, similar to the way the school committee helps the superintendent say priority. These are the parameters in which the budget should be done. There's never enough money. There's always more ask and very few new funds coming available. But some guidance from above instead of reaction after the fact might produce better results, only because once you're looking at a fully formed budget, if you want to say, let's give more money to this program, you're taking it from somewhere else. And it would be easier for seniors to address the select board proactively than constantly fighting back to say, but you overlooked us in the process.
Yeah. Every year we have a goals document that sets out the select board's priorities. Now, is that perfect? No, it's not. But it's something that I tried to use and when I was chair, to get the town administrator and departments through him to focus on those things that we as a select board thought were important and needed to be focused on. Now, was it perfect? It was not, but at least that is a start. Heather, who's now chair, has put together a new approach to the budget process, whereby each board member will have 3 departments to work with on budget issues. I have the Council of Aging, the library, and town council. So we talk with the head of the department and try to understand their priorities and needs. And the select board and the advisory committee are going to be meeting jointly on some of the budget proposals before they go to a vote. So we're trying to put together a better way of dealing with those issues than we have in the past, and hopefully we'll come up with better solutions. So
Thank you.
I hope that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see that you're trying, and I know some of these ideas have been floating around for a long time, and it's hard for them to gain traction. And of course, the last 2 years, virtually nothing could gain traction because of the pandemic. But hopefully that will help. And when you do these things with the department heads, I think it would also help to have public hearings so that we know where we should show up, so that we're not showing up to advocate for seniors when you're knee deep in talking to the police department, because as you said, there's needs all over. But thank you. I think that's encouraging.
By the way, you may want to make that suggestion to Heather. Because I don't think that there are any new hearings set up in this process. I mean, of course, there's a
Right.
hearing whenever we meet in public on the budget, but if you
I
can be
thought
more.
we were
Yeah, let me just say, yeah.
okay. I was just going to add, we were told at advisory committee last Thursday, Heather was there and told us that she will be assigning 2 select board members to attend each of the advisory committee's public hearings on the budget.
Yeah.
So that will be an opportunity to have both the select board and the advisory committee and the department heads all present. And at this time, this is when public comments are taken. So anyone who, for example, has something to say about the police department can attend the public safety subcommittee hearing about the police department. And that would be a time when you could speak up, both pro and con.
Yeah, the other side of that is making sure that things are publicized in a way that people see it, which, picks up on Bernard's comment about we don't know how to reach out to people. We'd like to include you, but we keep going to the same pool. And I know I would never attempt to go through an agenda from the select board to figure out if that's where I want to show up, just because it goes on forever. So I don't know if there's ways to publicize things on the town website, or if it falls back to each department to go to their constituencies. Certainly, this is a forum where if you tell us, we'll show up.
Yeah. Okay. Can I just add one thing? Bear in mind that when we're putting together a budget, there are a huge number of interests that have to be balanced, and each interest, not just seniors, have lobbies that really put us under pressure. And the other thing that people, I don't know if they realize, is that this town is understaffed, and it's very difficult to implement certain priorities when you don't have the staff to do it. That's a huge problem, and we have to figure out a way of dealing with it. The way to deal with it, of course, includes overrides. Overrides create problems for certain people, especially seniors. So it's it's a balancing act, and it's not easy. I'm sorry. So John had his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Bernard. Yeah, thank you. We were talking about the police department issue earlier. Bernard, you mentioned the new social worker that is now, I guess, working with the police department. We all know about the incident that happened in New York City within just the last week or two, where police officers responded to a domestic, I guess a husband and wife, disturbance call, 911, and police officers walked in, and at least one of them was shot and killed as part of that. So my question is, do we have precautions in place? So if this social worker is the one or one of the ones to respond to calls like domestic disturbance calls or mental health calls, that there is a protection backup. I guess I mean an officer with a gun, unfortunately, going with that social worker. That's part one, and then I have a second part as well.
Let me just say a couple of things. First of all, we would never send a social worker to a domestic violence incident. The idea that you would do that is just so out of touch with what domestic violence is. That's probably the most dangerous situation for anyone, let alone a police officer. And I'd like to do some research into what happened in New York, because it seems to me that they made some really big mistakes. Maybe lack of training, or just they're too new on the job. But they seem to have walked into a situation that they should have held back from, and taken other precautions. No, we would never send a social worker to a domestic violence incident. Many times, we have one social worker who's grant funded, an incredible person. I think I wrote about her on a town meeting listserv post. Annabelle is incredible, but her role is to back up a police intervention in a, for example, mental health or substance abuse situation after the situation has been calmed down and safe. And then she can go in and figure out, are there resources, are there supports that the parties involved can use that she would know of as a social worker to avoid the need to, for example, lock someone up or put them in a facility that is inappropriate for the type of problems they have. So, Annabelle is, has some specific responsibilities tied to the grant and is limited to the daytime. So what we're proposing, or what my committee proposed, was to budget for another social worker in the police department for nighttime incidents. Now, in terms of domestic violence, the social worker, would have a role, but only after, the right person is in jail and the person who needs the help is in a risk-free environment where, it's usually a she, unfortunately, can get information on resources that will provide protection for her, as well as a way to, start their life again. So, that's the role police officers or social workers play in the police department.
Excellent.
Just let it be known you'd never send a social worker to a police. To a
Excellent. Okay, that was part one. Part two is related, which is that there, as you mentioned, there is a active search right now for a new police chief or commissioner, whatever the title is, to be the person in charge of the police department. And my question is there a representative from the reform committee on the police chief search committee?
No, there's not. But there's some good people on the committee, so I'm not really worried about that. I would like to see maybe some police trained people providing either assistance to the committee, either as a member or as a just consultant. When we had a committee to advise a town administrator on the selection of the fire chief, where we selected incredible fire chief John Sullivan, there was an actual fire chief from another town on the committee who gave us insights into what the issues in selecting a fire chief were that we as civilians would never have thought of. So I think that would be a useful thing for this committee to have. I mean, it's winding down, it's beginning to interview candidates. So it may be a little too late, but still it's something that you may want to suggest. I mean, I've suggested it, other people have suggested it too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who else?
Susan Cohen, Ruth Ann. I think that's Ruth Ann who?
Yes, I'm
There
here.
are a couple of Ruth Anns, but
Oh,
Okay. Okay. So let's do Susan Cohen now and Ruth Ann next.
Okay, thank you. Bernard, I have a couple of questions to ask you.
hello,
The
Susan,
first,
my
first one.
former precinct
Hi.
7
How are
town
you?
meeting member.
Why are we so short-staffed? I mean, you talked about short-staffed. Are we not giving the salaries that other communities are giving their employees and the benefits? And if that's the problem, why aren't we? And number two, I'm especially talking about the health department now and public works. Could you please respond to that?
Yeah. Why are we short-staffed? I mean, one of the problems we have in Massachusetts, and it's not just Brookline, is Proposition 2.5, which is designed to make sure that towns are usually short-staffed. It's designed to have, structural deficits in town budgets, because there's no way that that expenses are going to always rise, below 2.5% per year. So, there's a structural reason why we have short staffing, and the only way to get around that is, a bunch of commercial development or, overrides. And of course, overrides are very difficult because of the impact it has, not on the people at the upper end, but people in the lower end of the home ownership spectrum. But we have to figure out ways to address the staffing shortages in key departments, and health is one critical one. And I think that with the new health director, we can begin to address that. It may mean that it may mean an override. I don't know, or it may mean just more creative ways of distributing the budget and making use of funds that are available now from the federal government through the ARPA program, and if there's any CARES money left over, that could if not be used for staffing, and many times it can't, but, you know, could be used to provide some of the, capital needs that would support an expansion of these departments.
And my other question is regarding the public works and the weather outside. I know there's a law that says that you have to clean in front of your home like 3 hours after the storm ends or something like that. And there's some law that says, David, I know you.
Yeah, you do have to clean this or shovel the sidewalk. I don't know what the.
Yeah.
36 hours.
36 hours.
30
that's fine.
hours, yes.
Well, whatever. My question is, with the ice storm, a lot of people couldn't do that, cut that, chop up that ice. It was impossible. But I was walking yesterday and on Aspinwall Avenue, and a lot of people shoveled, but a lot did not. But my question is, why can't the people who can't shovel, and I fully understand that you can't shovel ice, is why can't they throw some sand on it? When you send out this thing about the rules for snow removal, why can't you add an addendum that says, if you find it impossible to shovel, please at least throw some salt, sand out there or ice melt out there, because it's very slippery.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, could you add it to your little, magazine or leaflet, I guess you call it? So I'm not saying that everybody must shovel. I'm just saying if you can't do it, at least throw some sand out there.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I'll mention that to Aaron Galentine because, yeah, it's true. I mean, not everyone can shovel their sidewalks, especially seniors who shouldn't be shoveling the sidewalk. And we have to, I don't know how we would do this, but we need to figure out some way of providing some type of assistance. I know that high school kids many times, will shovel for money or as part of a, public service effort. And maybe the schools ought to try to organize that a little more. But I think that that's a good idea to tell people that you have a responsibility to clear your sidewalks. And if that means putting down salt or sand so that people don't slip, that's something that you should consider. Snowstorms like we had recently are very, very dangerous for a lot of people, especially seniors, and people should, sort of bear that in mind. DPW really does a lot of work. I could give you the numbers in terms of the miles of both street as well as sidewalks that they clear. Now, when they clear sidewalks, and for example, they'll clear sidewalks on certain routes to schools, many times they get covered again because the snow plows push the snow from the road onto the sidewalks. And, that sort of makes it necessary for the homeowner to continually clear the sidewalks. I mean, it's a huge problem. There's no magic answer to it, but I think your suggestion, is something that does a little small thing that makes a lot of sense.
Ruth Ann, I think you were next.
Ruth Ann Snyder? Okay, Bernard,
Yes.
do you remember the Well Tower has agreed to donate $2,500 a year to the senior center? Well Tower,
Yeah, I didn't remember what the exact amount was. But
you negotiated it, which is why I'm asking you, but it's a small detail with all the numbers you carry around in your head. So I'm glad I'm reminding you and everybody, they're required, they've signed a contract or an agreement to give the senior center $2,500 every year. I don't think it's a terrific amount of money from such a big organization, but I'm just wondering if they're doing it and if there's some mechanization in place so that if the current people aren't around to remind them that it gets paid every year, $2,500.
Yeah, I don't know if they're doing it. I do remember the agreement, and my guess is that it starts once their housing development opens up. But I'll check on that.
And will you check on the mechanism to make sure that it is one of these things that does get paid, it doesn't get lost in the weeds?
I will.
Thank you, Bernard.
I don't think we have to worry about that. I mean, Well Tower not only is a very big organization, they're very well run, and I think they're really committed to being a good neighbor in our town. But I will check to make sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think this is
but-
where, excuse me, but Chestnut Hill Realty has made a lot of promises about upkeeping just garden areas and stuff that they do, and they have to be reminded constantly. So I just think it's part of good business practices to make sure that the things are happening and
Right.
not trust that they'll remember. Okay, thank you, Bernard. Thank you, everybody.
By the way,
Okay,
I always believe like Ronald Reagan believed, trust but verify.
fair.
Amen.
Always verify.
Okay, who has another question? Okay.
I'm
I
sure
have
I didn't answer everyone's questions.
David.
David.
David,
I'll just ask a general question, since I'm, very still learning how the town operates. How do things get onto the select board agenda? So for example, I wrote to you and the other select board members about a week ago saying, okay, we delivered the pedestrian friendly lighting committee report, something that this group is interested in. How do we get any action? There's been no response that I know of from the select board. So how do we have to file a warrant article to ask a resolution to ask the select board to respond to the report or to adopt policy, or what happens? How do things get onto the agenda?
Okay, I apologize for not, that we didn't respond to that. We should have, and I'll check on that. But the way things get on the agenda is it's mainly through the chair of the select board. She and the town administrator and Devin, who's the administrative assistant, will meet and put things on the select board based on what's coming up from the departments as well as what's coming up from the outside. And Devin puts together what's called futures list of things that have to be dealt with at some time in the future. And my assumption is that your item is on the futures list and may come up in the next week or two. But I would check and see if I can get a better answer than that.
Okay, thank you.
But remember, we can only put things on the agenda that we know about, and if it's coming from the public, it's important that, like you did, David, you tell us and give us really some guidance as to how you want it handled.
Okay, thank you. Carol has her hand up.
Hello, Carol.
Hey, hi, Bernard. Bernard, I have a comment more than a question that came
That's
to
easy for
mind.
me to respond to.
No, but you should respond to it. Is that many people may not know that before every select board meeting, there's a thing for citizens' comments. And it's especially useful, I should think, for people during the Zoom era who otherwise couldn't get their bodies down to town hall for a meeting. And if some of the issues like what Ruth Ann just discussed and what David discussed, a way of getting it out there is to just send in that you want to make a citizen comment, and then to say, okay, my comment is I would like to hear what you think of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee's report. Or as Ruth Ann's was, could you look into make sure that Well Tower is contributing their $2,500 a year, or when does it start? But it's easy to do now because you don't have to be there. You can, just sign up for Zoom, and when it's citizen comments time, you could make these comments about any of the issues. Right now, it would be my vocal point would be on issues involving seniors, but it is a way to get yourself heard. And maybe that's a way to get it put on agendas for the future.
Yeah. And
that's my comment.
And by the way, it has an impact when we hear from residents. I can mention a couple examples, but they're a little controversial, so I won't. But the select board does respond to comments and other things from the public. So.
okay.
It's so easy to send an email anyway that expresses your opinion. We read them. They're in our packet many times, and they have an impact.
I just want to follow up on that. It's you know, email is wonderful, but the thing about the citizen comments at the select board meeting, anybody who's tuned in to the select board would hear those comments. Where an email message, the 5 of you get it and the town administrator, but the general public doesn't know that there's somebody out there querying this issue. And by doing it in public comments, you get other support.
Yeah, that's a good point. Many times the emails we get on really hot button issues are in the packet. I mean, that's not as good as, you know, people hearing it on the TV, but
Right.
you know, that is something, and maybe all of our emails ought to be in the packet if they're not already.
Melissa, do you have your hand up? No, okay. All right. Does anyone else have a question?
Matt.
Yes, my question is related to the IT areas and the communication area. There was a discussion recently about the various kinds of content that gets out both on the website and distributed, and it seems sort of discombobulated. There's some things that are very clear, there's some things that aren't, they're not necessarily related. Well, I don't know whether other towns have it, but we had a recommendation that came up in the Age Friendly Cities Committee that was about the possibility of a communications staff person, actually having someone assigned to coordinating the content and communications from both the website and the town. That would be sort of either a center or someone that would advise or monitor what was happening or put in place processes that would. Is that a thought that you've heard cross either select board or outside? Anybody say anything?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm not sure that that is being considered right now, but you know, I'll raise that. I know that Feng Yang, who's our IT director and is very, very good, is working on improving what I think is a crappy web page or website of the town. It's not even, some of the things aren't even in alphabetical order, I mean, which is inexcusable for a smart town like this. But
yeah, I should point out I am on the advisory committee for the IT. So
oh, I'm sorry.
Not coming from but no, nobody else has heard that. That's good.
Yeah, but there is an effort to improve the public or the public communication of the town. I don't know the details of that and how far it's gotten, but it's sort of just getting off the ground. I see Janet is shaking her head. Maybe she knows more.
I'm trying to remember, it was on John Van Scoyak's newsletter a couple of weeks ago. The town has hired, several years ago, there was a warrant article for a community something person so that you'd be getting community input. A lot of it was sort of Dicker focused, but that's an avenue. And I believe the newsletter said there's a person, but I'm blanking
Yes,
on.
there is.
Yeah,
Yes,
there
yes.
is. It's a community engagement person in
Right.
in the diversity office, and that's McGo. Oh God, I'm sorry, I'm blocking on her name.
Caitlin?
No.
No.
San Miguel, Carolina. Carolina.
San Miguel.
But that would seem to me to be somebody involved in communications. And
That's a different role, though. That is a different role than what I define. But you're right. Everybody thinks of that
I mean, they certainly can give input into whatever, I would think.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe, I need to talk to her on some other things. Maybe I'll ask her if that's something that could be within her wheelhouse, because, when we talk about communicating to the public, it's nice to know what the public's interested in being communicated to. So the two functions seem to go together fairly well.
Yeah. I think anyone who's had experience using the town's website, particularly if you're new to Brookline, can be really at the least very confused about where to go. It's not intuitive. Yeah. And I don't know if it's a problem in terms of IT or if it's a problem in terms of understanding how people communicate and what people are likely to be looking for. But the sort of things you'd expect to see on the first page often aren't there. And then when you get into a particular department, you don't necessarily know what you're looking for. And unless it's labeled in a way that people are used to finding things, they just are lost and then they give up. Obviously, there are phone numbers they can call, but as you said, with the reduced staffing, it's not the best way to be using departmental staff time. So if the answers would be on the website and easy to access, maybe people would get the information they need. I have another question, and that concerns, I'm sure, you've been very aware of the large number of key departmental heads and town administrators who have either resigned in the last 18 months or maybe resigning in the next year or so. Do you think there's a systematic problem that we have in Brookline, or is it just a coincidence that all of these are happening at this time?
Yeah, very few times are things explained by coincidences. But a couple cases, we have people who basically were at retirement age and decided to retire for good reasons, like Papa Sturgeon at DPW. Other cases, of course, we lost our police chief for reasons that we all know about, which were very unfortunate, and the problems there, in my opinion, exist not only in the police department but other departments, and we've lost some people as a result, both at the top as well as down further in the staffing. We lost our finance director because her husband apparently got a job in Germany. That was a huge blow. Although Justin Casanova Davis has taken over and is doing an incredibly good job. We lost town council for reasons that maybe some of you understand. I don't. And we don't have a town council staff, which is a huge problem. But I think we do have a problem in this town in terms of keeping good people and keeping our department staffed. I'm not
What
gonna.
about Val Kleckner?
Well, he's why he's leaving, ask him. But he's retiring, and maybe the nature of Brookline town politics had something to do with it. I don't know, but that's another position that we have to fill. I mean, we're having to fill hugely important top positions in this town within a short period of time. I mean, it's going to be very, very difficult, and it won't result in the most excellent results. But hopefully we'll get.
Bernard, couldn't that be an opportunity to?
Pardon me?
Couldn't that be an opportunity to?
Oh yeah, it could be an opportunity. I mean, for example,
Bring in some people.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Dr. Jett did an incredible job in terms, especially during this COVID period. Yeah. And I don't know any details of why he left. I know some of the pressures he was under, unfortunate pressures and negativism. But it was an opportunity for us to get someone who I think is going to be very, very good. I mean, based on all that I know about her, she's going to be an excellent health director, and it gives us an opportunity not just to get a new person, very good person, but also an opportunity to reconceptualize the Health and Human Services Department and make it into a real Health and Human Services Department. So,
when does she begin working here, or has she started?
No, she begins February 28th.
Okay, good to know.
I would just point out
I
that
would urge the Council of Aging to to make sure they set a time to talk to her so that she
I'm
knows?
actually planning on inviting her to one of our future LCAC meetings if she can make the time, because I think it's a way of her getting to know people in the community.
Yeah.
And in just an hour's time, she can get a snapshot of some of the people's concerns.
Right. Janet was about to say
I
something.
was just going to point out that we're not the only town or city going through some of these personnel changes, and the competition is fierce. I remember it was well over a year until we hired Gina, who's now off in Germany with her husband, and we need another new finance director. And I remember Melissa saying how difficult it was because everybody was looking for. And from my time on advisory, I remember hearing from the buildings department that he needed HVAC people, and so does everyone else. And finding the dollars is very difficult. But the town does need, and it's something I raised with the previous HR director, it needs a succession plan, because some of it we know is coming, as with Andy and the assessor and all the people who are just aging out, as most of us have done from our jobs.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Well, this has been really informative, and I think we've gotten a different perspective on a lot of the work that you're doing, and some of the types of factors that are influencing decisions that behind the scenes that we're not really aware of, and the complexities of what you're doing. Do you have anything that you'd like to say in closing?
Well, nothing other than to say that I hope I gave you some information, and if I didn't give you some useful information, that at least I raised some questions that you can ask of me or someone else. You know, I want to emphasize again the importance of people who have concerns, people who have opinions regarding what the town is doing, that they let us know, so that it can't be said that the only people who care about issues in town are the people who believe X, as opposed to maybe you who believe Y about this. So, you know, that is you know, that is an important point. I just want to stress that again and again and again.
Thank you for your service, Bernard.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.